Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are taking a fascinating, really deep look behind the scenes of something we all interact with literally every single day, our food. Specifically, we're going to trace the incredibly complex and honestly sometimes surprising meat, poultry, and dairy supply chain. It's this massive global system, and we're going to break down exactly how the whole shebang actually works. Have you ever stopped to consider the journey your food takes before it hits your plate, or even your pet's bowl? Because, it's so easy to just grab a carton of milk or a pack of chicken at the grocery store without a second thought. But the actual physical path of those products going from the farm to the final market, it is heavily regulated and packed with hidden sustainability risks. Okay, let's just dive right into this. We're going to trace 4 distinct stages today. Stage 1, the producers. Stage 2, processing facilities. Stage 3, safeguarding the final product. And finally, Stage 4, reaching end markets. So how do things actually move through this distribution channel? Well, it starts right at the source with the producers who are raising the animals. From there, raw animal products flow directly into the processed foods industry or straight to retail distributors. And these distributors, they're absolutely vital. They're the link pushing all those finished products out to the incredibly diverse end markets that you and I interact with every single day. To keep track of this mind-bogglingly complex web, major meat, poultry, and dairy entities rely on the formal Sustainability Accounting Standards Board framework. We usually just call it SASB. From tracking greenhouse gas emissions to ensuring workforce safety, this comprehensive framework ensures that literally no risk along the supply chain is ignored. Let's kick things off with Stage 1, the producers. At the producer level, a really major structural element is the confined animal feeding operation, or CAFO. Now, these are animal feeding practices happening in really dense populations or limited spaces that require incredibly high resource inputs. They are strictly designed for maximum livestock production. But as you can imagine, they also generate highly concentrated amounts of waste and pollutants right at the very start of our supply chain. And raising all those animals requires water, a staggering amount of water. Under the SASB framework, producers absolutely must rigorously manage their freshwater withdrawals. And freshwater actually has a very strict definition here. It means water with less than 1,000 parts per million of dissolved solids. Sourcing this much specific fresh water, especially if you're in a region already facing water stress, is a really critical risk factor. Another massive factor at the farm level, antibiotics. They're used to improve output and animal welfare. But the framework makes a very strict distinction for what they call medically important antibiotics. These are antimicrobial drugs that are actually included on the World Health Organization's list for human medicine. So using these specific drugs in animals poses real public health concerns around antibiotic resistance, and that creates regulatory risks that echo all the way down the supply chain. Plus, producers really have to adapt to how the public views animal care. Companies are now required to track and report on very specific metrics. We're talking about the percentage of pork produced without highly restrictive gestation crates, the percentage of cage-free shell egg sales, and production that's certified to third-party welfare standards. It's a clear case where consumer pressure directly forces the industry to shift its practices. All right, let's leave the farm and move on to Stage 2, processing facilities. When tracking greenhouse gas emissions, the industry has to contrast 2 totally different, massive drivers. On one side, you've got the direct emissions from the livestock themselves. Think methane from digestion or manure. But on the other side, once you hit the processing stage, you have these incredibly energy-intensive industrial facilities that are just consuming vast amounts of purchased electricity and fossil fuels. Once we're inside these processing facilities, the focus naturally shifts to the human workforce. These are fast-paced environments, packed with heavy machinery and chemicals. Because of that, the framework requires precise tracking of any recordable incident. What does that mean? Well, it's defined as an injury or illness resulting in death, days away from work, restricted work, or any medical treatment that goes beyond basic first aid. So, to track these injuries uniformly across the board, the industry uses a baseline of 200,000 hours. Why that number? It represents the total hours that 100 full-time workers would provide over a year. Companies use this exact formula to calculate their total recordable incident rate, and that applies to both their direct employees and any contract workers operating inside their facilities. Which brings us to Stage 3, safeguarding the final product. Because contamination by pathogens or spoilage presents such incredibly serious health risks, the final packaged products are heavily scrutinized. The industry uses rigorous Global Food Safety Initiative metrics to track any major or minor non-conformances in their facilities. The goal is making absolutely sure that whatever leaves that plant is completely safe for consumption. But what happens if something actually goes wrong? Companies have to track their product recalls, and these fall into two distinct categories. You have voluntary recalls, which the company initiates themselves when they suspect a safety concern. Then you have involuntary recalls. Those are much more severe because they're mandated by legal or regulatory authorities when a product actually fails to comply with safety standards. And here's the thing, a failure or contamination at the very start of the chain inevitably results in these costly removed products right here at the distribution phase. Finally, we've made it to stage 4, reaching the end markets. This is where all that effort and tracking actually pays off. The raw and processed animal products we've been following flow into the broader processed foods industry, off to major retail distributors, straight out to restaurants, directly to livestock and pet feed consumers, and finally into the grocery retailers where you and I shop. Every single one of these diverse end markets relies entirely on the safety and sustainability of that entire preceding chain. But getting to a global market, that's never guaranteed. Countries actively protect their populations using what are called SPS measures. These are incredibly strict sanitary and phytosanitary safety standards. If a company fails to manage disease or safety risks along its distribution channel, foreign governments can and will enforce these measures. They can effectively enact import bans, literally closing off entire global markets to those products in a heartbeat. So, knowing the intense journey a product takes from a contract farm all the way to a retail distributor, and understanding the massive sustainability and safety risks lurking at every single step, how will you view the footprint of your next meal? It is a complex, heavily scrutinized system operating silently in the background every single day just to bring food to your table. Thanks for exploring it with us on this Explainer.